Hello, everyone. We're delighted to have you here, and we are about to start this session on bravery in these times. I'm going to wait for a few of you to hop on as I just open the doors, open the webinar, and once we're all on, we will get started, probably in about 30 seconds. Hi, nice to see you all. Nice to see the familiar faces who have been coming a lot of the time for the 20-minute calls daily. I'm recognizing you, and it's nice to see you. Recognizing your names popping up. Oh, a friend from a while ago, very fun. We'll start in about 15 seconds. Would you type into the chat, you can do it just to me or you can do it to everybody, where are you dialing in from? Where are you calling in from? Where geographically? We had this week, we've had people from the Bay Area, we've had people from the New York area, we've had people from England. So where are you all coming from? Bay Area? That's where I am too. On a rare day, it's not sunny here. Great, New Jersey. Good to see you. Virginia, another Bay Area. Okay. North Carolina, love it. Okay, wonderful. Very fun. Massachusetts, San Diego, loving it. Okay, welcome to today's session on bravery. Why are we doing a session on bravery right now? Because it is one of the things that you can call on in your reserve, in who you are as a person during these times. It's sometimes easier to call on bravery when times are calm, and it's a little harder to call on bravery when times are wild and unpredictable like they are right now, but it might be useful to you in both cases. What are we going to do today? Today we're going to do three things. We're going to revisit the definition of bravery, and we're going to do two tools about bravery. So it is not looking great out there, and that is a great time to be thinking about and relying on and considering bravery. It's not looking great out there. There's some good news, there's some bad news. We all know people who have been seriously affected. By this time, we all know people like that. So let's just get sort of a base definition of bravery for the purpose of this call and for the purpose of doing some of the experiments that we'll do today. As a base definition of bravery, let's go with this, which is bravery is doing what is right, even when it is hard. I'll repeat that again. It's a very simple definition. It's doing what is right, even when it is hard. Okay, so given that definition, let's jump into a couple of things of how you can frame bravery and how you can think about it. And to start, I want to make this the kind of meeting that in 20 minutes you're in, you're out, you have tools. But to start all of this, I also want to give you something that, from my point of view, is something that would be brave if we did it in the workplace, in our work remote virtual calls. So I'm going to be an example and I'm going to do this, even though I see none of you, I only see your names. And what is this? I feel that we can lead by doing not only talking with our heads, but also talking about how people really are, which means their emotions. It means, are they moving around? Are they getting out of their chairs? So we're going to start with something that's going to seem a little unusual for you who have come here to get bravery tools. We're going to start with a stretch. And to do that, I'm going to ask you to stand up in your chair. I cannot see you, but would you stand up in your chair and kind of shake out one arm and shake out another arm? If I had a wish about corporate America, it's that we would move more. Whether it's when we're back to in-person meetings, that we would do walking meetings, or that we would do standing up at the beginning of a call. So I'm doing it because I think this is a brave thing we can add. So it's going to be about 30 seconds. Here's what we're doing. We're reaching our hands over our heads. And when you do it, would you keep your fingers very wide and separated? And reaching our hands high over our heads. And at this point, you don't even need to look at me. Look straight up at the ceiling with your fingers spread wide. And this is going to be a little funny. Stand up on your toes. You're looking up, you're reaching up, you're standing on your toes, which makes you balance funny, which is good. So you're balancing, and we're going to inhale for 3. So here we go. Inhaling for a count of 3. Filling our lungs for 2 more. For 1 more. And drop everything and exhale. And shake out your arm, shake out your other arm, your hand. Hello. That brings us to the same place. And now let's jump into our tools. Our tools. Our first tool is going to be 100 spider webs. What is this tool? What do spider webs have to do with bravery? There's a lot of research that courage and fear, I don't know exactly where it is, but they reside in the same parts of our brain. Courage and fear reside in the same parts of our brain. And if you have a fear of something, like for example, suppose that you are scared of spider webs, there are a lot of people, a lot of researchers in neuroscience. For example, there's one at Stanford in neuroscience. His name is Andrew Huberman. And he suggests that if you have, for example, a fear of spider webs, the most important thing you can do is walk through 100 spider webs. Now, when I say this to a class that I'm teaching at Stanford on how to be braver in your home and work, the first question I always get is, are these spider webs with spiders already in them or not with spiders in them? And my answer is, you don't know. You don't know what kind of spider webs they are, so you should just walk into them anyway. They might have those things that you are freaked out about and that you kind of hate. They might have spiders in them. If this is a way to get beyond our fear by actually walking through 100 spider webs, then how could you and how could we do that in the things that are important to us? So tool number one is 100 spider webs. And it is a time, especially in this time of uncertainty, to think about what is something that's important to me. Excuse me, I'm going to do a check. It's giving me a funny message. Are you all still here? Can you raise your hands if you're all still here? My computer's giving me a funny message. Yes, I've gotten a few hand raises. Thank you. That was very strange. Never happened on these calls. Thank you. So where were we? On spider webs. If you are walking through 100 spider webs, what would that mean for you in your real life? Not spider webs, but what would it mean for you? And what I mean is, think of something that is a little bit of an anathema for you. There I am using those fancy SAT words, but something that you don't love, that you kind of even physically bristle up against when you think about it. I'll give you a personal example. As I was teaching this bravery class, I love reaching out to clients and potential clients when I'm speaking to them, when I know them, when they're the HR departments of companies that we work with. I love doing that. It actually gives me a lot of energy to talk with them and strategize about what's important. But something I don't love as much is reaching out to companies that are completely new to me into the business of coaching and workshops. So for me, that was a little bit of my 100 spider webs. And what I did with that, at the same time that people in the class were choosing their 100 spider webs, I chose that I would speak to 100 companies and get 100 no's. Why did I want no's? Why wouldn't I have wanted to go into companies and speak to them and have them say, absolutely, Senia, we want the coaching that Silicon Valley Change offers. We want the workshops. We want all this. But no, I actually was looking to get 100 no's, because if I get 100 no's, that likely means that I probably would have spoken to 200 or 300 people and likely have gotten yeses where it is a fit, where it does make sense. So for me, that was my 100 spider webs. And I'm going to ask you, what could be your 100 spider webs, your thing that you just don't quite want to do, but if you do it, it would move you forward? And I'll give you some examples from when I was teaching this class at Stanford, what some of the students used as their 100 spider webs. So please type into the chat, because I want to talk about the things that are relevant to you here. Hear what some other people said. They said talking to new people. So one person made it a goal of their 100 spider webs that they would actually speak to people, even at the grocery store and at the post office. Nothing that we can do right now, but that was their goal. Speaking up at work in terms of doing what's right, because sometimes all of us can have the tendency to be more passive, even if we see the right route. Or speaking up in a meeting. A lot of people will wait in a meeting until near the end to speak up, but one person said, I'm going to speak in the first 10 minutes. So these are all their 100 spider webs. What are your 100 spider webs? And I'm going to read off some of what you're saying. Oh, somebody is here from the military and said, one of my former one-star bosses used to tell me to get out of my comfort zone once each day. That's basically walking through spider webs. I completely agree with you. Another of you is saying, asking for sponsorship to elevate your own role. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, so this comes up in coaching for us, which is for I and for our coaches, speaking up when I'm the only woman and the most junior in the room. That's actually a really interesting thing. Margaret Neal used to study this at Stanford, which is this double minority. So you might be the only woman and the most junior, or you might be the only product person in a room of engineers and somehow else different. You might be for international and everybody else is from that country that you're there from. So you might have this double, but you know what's interesting? I actually want to point this out because this leads to some aspect of bravery. If you are this double minority, and I'm not, by minority, I'm actually not saying necessarily ethnic. I'm saying it could be your point of view, it could be your role in the organization. But if you are a double minority, what's really interesting is that you are heard more. So it might seem like you're not heard that much, but you are actually heard more. Excuse me for just a second. That was my child coming in for a moment, asking for something with their classes. You could be a double minority, but you can actually use that for your benefit. So consider that. Don't just think, oh, this is tricky. That means that it's not doable. You may be heard more. And we have one other example before we move on to tool 2, which is somebody says cold calling someone to provide mentorship. Exactly. So these are the kind of things where you're reaching out, or you're just outside your comfort zone, or you're beyond what you think you could do. So what we just talked about is the brain and the courage center being in the same place in the fear and the courage center being in the same place of our brain, and using this 100 spider webs technique. All right, next technique. So I encourage you to think about, what is my 100 spider webs? And then to just chip away at that. There are 2 TED Talks. I'll share them later in the comments on this video on YouTube and on Facebook. There are 2 TEDx talks. One is about getting 100 no's, 100 rejections, which is a little similar to mine. And the other is about doing 100 things that frighten you. And that's a really fun, really engaging talk about this woman who did things from sky jumping to, I think, eating oysters or something. Something was new for her. So what is the 100 that is at a high level that really can move you forward? Switching gears, tool number 2 of our 2 tools today. Floss one tooth. This is my interpretation of a tooth in my infinite artwork. Floss one tooth. This is research by another Stanford person. This is research by BJ Fogg, who just came out with a book earlier this year called Tiny Habits. Flossing one tooth. Let me put you in the space of a situation. Let's suppose that you could either floss one tooth every day for a week, or you could floss all your teeth for a week. Let's say you're in an experiment and you could either be in the group where you're flossing one tooth every day, or you're flossing all your teeth, basically flossing. Let's say you do that for a week. If you come back 6 months later, in which case do you think that you will be more likely to have continued flossing? With the one tooth or with the whole mouth? So tell me what you think. Give me some comments here. I don't see your comments yet. One tooth, whole mouth. All right, I love it. Thank you. You're giving me both perspectives. I'll give you the pros and cons of both perspectives. If you're flossing your whole mouth, then you're used to it. And every time you go to your toothbrush and your floss, you're actually flossing every tooth and you're used to it. Fine. Aha, so one of you did a tricky answer to me. You said whole mouth, but you're making me think the answer is one tooth. If you floss one tooth, so you're used to it with the whole mouth, and maybe you're more likely 6 months later, even after this research study. But the other point of view is, if you floss one tooth, it's so easy. You pick up the floss, it's so easy, and you put it back down. That's it. So it's a different thing that you might be working on in that time. One is the habit of just picking up the floss, and the other is the effort of working on flossing your whole mouth. Now, these are for people who haven't flossed. So all of you on the call who are regular flossers are probably thinking, what kind of research study is this anyway, Senia? What's going on? But this is for people who aren't regular flossers, and what can they do and what should they do? It turns out the answer is really flossing one tooth. And I'll give you some examples of this in your own life. I used to be a big fan of this website called 100 Push-Ups. I think it's become an app now. And the idea with 100 push-ups was you start with one. I mean, you literally start with one. But they do a baseline. They say, so without even practice or anything, how many can you do all at once? And I'm sure the range on this call is people can do from 5 to 40 just because of their level of exercise. But you start with that base and then you go up incrementally. And if you think about it, naturally, it makes sense to us. Yes, I'll start with small and do a little more and a little more, a little more. So that's the difference. Flossing one tooth. What is an area in your life where you can do the equivalent of flossing one tooth? That's a habit that's so small, that's so easy that it doesn't even give you pause when you're doing it. All right, let's see what you all are thinking. And I'll tell you what a lot of people say as you're typing in your answers. A lot of people say things like, well, I'm, and you've heard this in webinars earlier this week, I'm in control of what I eat. I'm in control of how I exercise. So for example, I could go for a 5-minute walk. That's the equivalent of flossing one tooth. Or I could make sure to have some vegetable with every meal, like a small vegetable, not even a whole half plate of broccoli, but a small vegetable. That's the equivalent of flossing one tooth. So it's so small that you barely even notice it at all. That's the equivalent. All right, let's see what you all are saying. You all are being quiet right now. Now, I don't know if that's because you don't have your own example of flossing one tooth, or because you're thinking about what's meaningful in terms of flossing one tooth. So I'll give you one more moment on it, on flossing one tooth. You may see me turning around for just a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, you're saying doing things like moving, just carving out a little bit of time. Just a little bit of time for yourself. We're finding that a lot here in these days. What else are you saying? Better correspondence with friends, reaching out to friends, not only focusing on work and just the people that you're living with. Approaching a big project, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So what are those small steps? So now if you think about it, we've kind of gone in two different directions. Here are the two. We've got 100 spider webs and we've got flossing one tooth. And with that, I'm coming to the end of this and I'm going to give you one meta perspective and then I'm happy to answer questions. Flossing one, sorry, I'll go in the way that I said it. 100 spider webs is going for that big thing, that thing that's definitely at the edge of your comfort zone. And flossing one tooth is doing something that you're absolutely comfortable with. So in a sense, these two tools are, if you step back at a meta level, they are what is the top down or the big picture, what is the bottom up or even the small details. Or you could think of them as what is hard and then what is easy that I can really approach all the time. So with that, I leave you with 100 spider webs and flossing one tooth as two ways that you can approach being braver in this time of bravery. And I really think of bravery as an investment. I've mentioned this before, where you're going step, 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 step. You're walking up the steps. And so by doing these, you are walking up those steps. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the end of the official part, and thank you so much. Okay, feel free to jump off now. We are it's important for us to do 20 minutes. If you'd like to ask questions, I am here. If you want to ask anything about bravery that you've ever wanted to, I am here, but feel free to jump off. The point is that we have gotten our crisp content and see you next week. We have a very, very cool lineup next week. You will see when you go to our website. What else? What questions do you have? Any questions at all? Any personal coaching that is on your mind? This is my favorite. It means you got it. You told me what you were thinking of. Here are some things. Here's some things some people are doing as their brave takeaway action. One person saying, I'm going to do a very brave thing today. I'm going to give 2 weeks notice to my current employer. How do I do it given the current work from home situation? Awesome question. You do it as directly and as kindly as you can. And we know that working in the Bay Area, we know that it's really important that we will see these people again. So you do it as kindly, but also as directly. So you don't beat around the bush. You actually say what's really going on and what's happening. Thank you for that question. Thank you, everyone. I'm delighted to have been with you. Thank you so much, and go bravely today and this week. All the best.